building a new coalition government. I'm not going to speak that much about Israel as such, but again, if you'll have questions, we can address it also during the Q&A. Questions that has to do with Israel. On the other side, you have in English, by the way, unless you prefer to read in Hebrew.
So are elections going on or they are finished?
The elections have been, the elections were finished. According to Israeli law, the president calls the candidate who has the best chance to form a government. We have a coalition government in Israel. That is to say, you have 120 members of the parliament. In order to establish a government, you need a coalition of minimum 61 members, support of 61 members of the parliament. In the past, we had also a minority government. Minority government is possible theoretically, it's no good. So actually, in order to establish a government, you have to have at least 61. The belief is that the current candidate, Mr. Netanyahu, will manage to establish a government of 60, that will lean on 64 members of the parliament. He's basically getting from the president 28 days at the beginning to establish his government. If he fails to do so, he's getting another 14 days. So altogether 42 days to establish this government, which is a lot of trade-off between him and the other parties. What happened was that he got the 28 days. It was not enough for him. He asked for another 14 days. That according to the legislation, he can. From some reason, the president gave him only 10 more days. But he can still ask for the other 4 days. If he fails to establish a government within 42 days, then it will go to somebody else to try to establish a government.
So right now there is no government?
Right, no. There's always a government. Currently there is the former government in Israel, Mr. Lapid, a transition government, until a new government is going to be sworn in.
I ask this because it is very interesting that here you're having an election, all this is happening and there is no tension, everything is going on as it does. Some of you will tell us our country.
Who tells you? Who told you that there is no tension?
I don't know. I don't see it in the streets. Everything seems to be.
We hide the tension from the foreigners, from the visitors. No, the tension here is not a violent one. If you are talking about a violent tension, it's not a violent one yet. It's you can find it in the media. You can find it in the parliament, in the discussions. People are talking about it.
But people are going to work.
Yeah, of course. And there isn't much, and there isn't a violent or aggressive expression of this tension, but there is a tension which is not violent one. But as for your question, yes, people are going to work. The government still works. The government can establish or try to establish new laws, unless until the day. Currently, they lost the majority. The current government was leaning on a majority, but now the new parliament was sworn in after the election, so you have new 120 members of the parliament. So the current government basically has no majority anymore in the parliament. So basically, theoretically, they could have established laws, but in order to have a new law in Israel, you have to have the support of the parliament, and they lost the support. But they can take what you call executive decisions in the field of security, police, all executive decisions. You know, executive decisions, you need only the executive, you don't need exactly. So this one can be done, and that's how we run the party. I guess you know that in the last 4 years we had 4 campaigns, 4 different elections. Let's hope that this one will be more stable, the current government. So what I suggest is let me run through the motion very quickly, and then I see that you have many questions. I'll be happy to try to address those questions. So the new government. Here? Okay, no cameras from this side. I think the new government that will be established, I believe, within around 10 days, and I believe that the current, that Mr. Netanyahu will manage to establish a government, is going to address a Middle East which basically is a little bit similar to Africa that you know very well, in some senses. First of all, Israel, just like Rwanda, Kenya, and Zambia, is a stable state, but lives in an unstable environment, in an unstable neighborhood. I'm following the news coming from Kenya, I'm following the news coming from Rwanda, I'm following the news coming from Zambia, and basically there is a wide common denominator between the states you are coming from and the states that you are visiting now, in the sense that our countries, our states are stable, but they have to face a region, a neighborhood which is unstable. This leads to the second issue that, again, I heard somebody was asking about it, proliferation of terror within the neighboring states, taking advantage of this unstable region, of this lack of governance, if you would like, among some of our neighbors. The case of Somalia, which is the neighbor of Kenya, the case of RDC, which is the neighbor of Rwanda, and also in the case of Zambia. All of us are having neighbors which find it hard to control the bilateral borders. In that sense, I think Israel is facing similar challenges to the one you are facing in Africa. The main challenge to stability in the Middle East is Iran. Actually, as it stands now, Iran, we are not the only one who thinks so. I think that all the Sunni states in the Middle East would share the same view. And actually, Iran is threatening the stability in the Middle East, not only through the nuclear ambition, as you all know, they have their own ambition to develop a nuclear weapon, but also through spreading terror. They spread the terror through their proxies. There are all kinds of Shiite elements in the Middle East, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, Bahrain, in other places, which are being used by the Iranian government to advance its own interest, mainly to advance their terror. So in Lebanon, unfortunately, and I saw that the visit is mainly centered in the center of Israel, but I hope this is not because of what I said. In Lebanon, Israel is facing a challenge by an organization known as Hezbollah, means the Party of God. They are leaning on the Shiite communities in South Lebanon. In Syria, you don't have that much Shiite, but the Iranians are there by its own forces. In Gaza, we have also terror groups that are being not Shiite, but being influenced and paid and financed by Iran, known as the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And the same policy Iran is running against other moderate states, pro-Western states in the Middle East. They try to unbalance Iraq by using Shiite elements in Iraq. They try to unbalance Bahrain by using Shiite elements in Bahrain. And the same, they're trying to unbalance Lebanon by using Shiite elements in Lebanon, and so on and so forth. So this is Iran. I think Iran is being pushed against the wall currently. That's why you see that they are cooperating with the Russians in this terrible war in Europe. They are facing now also internal problem following the hijab demonstrations. And they've just executed for the first time one of the demonstrators, which I believe reflects a growing feeling of lack of self-confidence in Iran. They knew that it's going to be depicted in a very negative way in the international arena. Nevertheless, they decided to execute this